Hello everyone, welcome to another beautiful zoology session in the Chak series by Infinity Learn, where learning is infinite and fun. I'm Mythili Mam, your zoology faculty, and today we are going to discuss the chapter Animal Kingdom, right? So do like, share and subscribe our YouTube sessions. Do log on to Infinity Learn website, where you can register for n number of courses or the test series, and you get a discount coupon too using Mythili40, MYTHILI 4040. You use the coupon code, you get those discounts on the test series as well as the registered courses by our amazing faculty. On the live chat, I already see Smriti Nair saying that, this chapter takes a very long time period, so it's as vast as a desert. Rightly said, Smriti Nair, I agree with you totally. It's a really vast subject. Animal Kingdom, yes, is you dive in deeper and deeper. Yes, there's more and more to learn. What we're going to try and do in this 2 hours is give you a gist of the Animal Kingdom so that you can score maximally in your NEET examination. We are going to cover or focus or emphasize on those points which can be made MCQs or which are popular questions, you could say, as far as the NEET is concerned. Right? So we are going to definitely focus on the important points and help you, score maximally in the NEET. Obviously, we will not be able to, go such a deep manner where every detail is covered. We will definitely have more and more sessions for those two. And when you register for our courses, our amazing faculty will help you through that as well. But you can reap the maximum benefit with this class as well. Hope I am clear with that. Raviteja Naik, ma'am, could you teach the tricks to remember examples? That's why we are here, dear. Raviteja, this is a very good point that you have raised, because Animal Kingdom is all about the scientific names and the examples. A little trick I would like to offer, and I always said in my previous sessions, is NCRT examples. No, there are a lot of examples that you will get in your reference books, in the other books that you are going to refer, or other than the textbook, or in your class notes provided by your teachers. But I would say make a list of all the NCRT examples. Now that is not going to be a very vast one. Make a list of that and paste it somewhere where you can see every day. You cannot mug it up. There is no way that, one little trick my students actually taught me once is, they have this little study group of girls where they called each other by a certain scientific name which they had difficulty remembering. Instead of calling each other their name, it's all in fun. Obviously a close group. If you're offended by it, please don't do it. Otherwise, that's one little trick. You can do it. And, throughout the day, you can call a certain object by a certain scientific name. Make a name list. Paste it somewhere where you can see. Glancing it every day is something that's very important. You keep on, reading it over and over again. That mugging wouldn't help. Instead, make a list, paste it somewhere where you can see, and just have a glance every single day till your NEET examination. That is going to be of thorough help. And other tricks, of course, where, you can keep on grilling each other, make a close study group and keep on asking each other some scientific names in a particular day, every single day. Maybe grill each other with 10 scientific names. That is also one way you can remember the scientific names. And there is Subhiksha who's saying, hi, Sukumar, hello, long time no see. You used to attend the classes previously before, I remember, Sukumar. So welcome all to the class. Let's begin our 2-hour session. Stay tuned, right? So that's Animal Kingdom in one shot. That's our Chak series, Chak NEET examination, right? So yeah, as I told, do share, like and comment on the videos as well. If at all you have a question, do comment about it. The other day Ankita was discussing in the reproductive health chapter how marriageable age is something that is raised. 2021 edition is also something that's talking about 18 and 21. You can stick with that with the NEET examination unless and until there are further changes. We will definitely keep you updated, right? So that's our schedule we've been following. 4th, we have discussed human reproduction. You can go back and watch those videos. 12th, we are done with the reproductive health. A little adjustment there. Instead of Tuesday, we were online Wednesday due to certain technical glitch. And 18th, that is today, we are going to do our animal kingdom. And stay tuned for more in the month of Jan. 25th Jan, we are going to come up with digestion and absorption. Not just zoology sessions, there are n number of other sessions as well as far as physics, chemistry and botany is concerned. There's Aman Verma sir, there's Vibhati ma'am, there's Kiran ma'am, there's Suchita ma'am, who are dealing with other subjects and are giving you this Chak Day one-shot series, each lesson in the 2 hours, right? It's like a horror movie, Raviteja says. That's definitely a way you people would like to describe, but as a zoology teacher, yeah, I can have a good laugh about it, but can't agree with you there. It's all about, being passionate about it. You fall in love with the animals, you fall in love with the subject, you fall in love with, be more curious, be excited about learning. You will definitely learn it. What happens when you tag a certain subject? I'm not talking about just zoology. Any subject, any topic, you tag it, you brand it, it's more difficult for you to learn it. So that is one thing. So even though, there's a certain thing that you are having difficulty with, do not brand it. Give it certain time, be consistent with it. Just like, you go to a gym one day and work out for say 4 or 5 hours, will you get into shape? No, it has to be a consistent effort. Do it like maybe 20-30 minutes throughout the year. You are definitely there. You are getting into shape, right? So it's a consistent effort. And this is one little trick also. Never ever brand a certain topic to be, a very difficult one or not achievable one. You brand it psychologically. It's something that's a block. That's not allowing you to dive deeper into that subject. So even though it's difficult, be consistent with it. Keep on beating it. Why can't you achieve it? There are n number of other teenagers of your age who are able to do it. Why not you, right? So that should be the spirit. Physiology and living world is what Subhiksha liked. Yes, dear, human physiology, learning about ourselves should be something not just like a passionate thing, but it is I would say a necessary thing, a mandatory thing. We should know about ourselves, right? Right. So that's Animal Kingdom. I'm Mythili Aburi, your zoology faculty from Infinity Learn, right? So why should you learn Animal Kingdom? Reason very clear from this particular slide. On an average, 3 to 4 questions are appearing every year in the NEET examination. This is the reason why you should study Animal Kingdom. For 3 to 4 questions is not a something that you cannot take it very seriously, right? It's something that you need to pay attention to. So that's why you're learning this subject today, this topic today. So Animal Kingdom starts with, why do we even have to classify the animals? If you're looking at your boards, the CBSE, this is also one 2-mark question that can be asked. Like, what is the need for classification? There are millions and millions of animals that are discovered and yet to be discovered. So this is all the more reason that you assign it a systematic position, right? It helps in assigning systematic position. That's the line you need to highlight in your textbooks. Get your NCRT textbook, your highlighter, your notes and pen ready, and that's your first highlighted statement you have in your NCRT statement. Why should you even classify the animals? There are n number of animals out there that are yet to be discovered, that are already discovered, and it's very, very important that you assign a systematic position. And how do you do that? By learning their characters, and that's what we are going to do precisely in the lesson Animal Kingdom, right? So there are Subiksha says yes, systematic meaning. Basically, when we talk about systematic, it is a more organized manner, right? You learn about biological classification in botany in even more detail, but just on the outer surface to let you understand, you know, you study characters of a particular group of animals, they are similar. You know, there are characters that are making them distinct from another group. Of course, when you study evolution, you also study about animals which exhibit characters of both the group. We call them the connecting links, very important in your evolution chapter, right? So this kind of classification allows you to understand the animal even in a better manner. When you are putting them into different groups, you tend to learn the evolutionary linkages, you tend to understand how this particular organism has evolved. Maybe fishes were some things which were in water. Amphibians, on the other hand, were both in water as well as land. So there's an evolutionary connect, right? So all these are some things you are able to understand when you are putting them in an organized manner, right, Sviksha? Right, Ankita, you are always to the point, the child who understands really well. Yes, taxonomy, when you are studying this, you understand like how well and organized manner you are tending to, you know, put in the characters of different animals, how you're classifying them, how you are able to understand not just that particular group, but how it's related to the other groups as well, right? So that's the important take home point from your first page NCRT text. And then we start with basis of classification. What is the basis? So you have been telling us, ma'am, since then that there are certain characters. So how do we classify these characters? N number of characters, obviously, right? So what are a few basic points, standard guidelines that we take in order to be able to, you know, classify, categorize the animals? So I'm going to put it for you in a systematic manner here, right? Instead of highlighting your NCRT text, it's levels of organization, whether it is cellular level, tissue level, organ system level. Then we have symmetry, the geometrical organization of an animal, right? Diploblastic and triploblastic organization, where the primary germ layers are 2 in number or 3 in number. And then we have the celome. Celome is nothing but cavity, a space within the body, based on which also we can categorize the animals. The fate of blastopore. During the embryonic development, the opening to the external environment is a little pore called the blastopore at a particular stage of the embryonic development, whether it is developing into the anus or mouth, based on which also we can classify the animals. Segmentation, very easy to understand from the very word, whether a particular animal has, you know, has segmentation. It is some or most of the organs are serially repeated. It's a metamerism we are going to discuss. And the notochord, which is what is being, you know, replaced by the vertebral column in some of the higher organisms, not so in the lower, and maybe not present at all in the non-chordates, right? Endoderm, ectoderm, mesoderm, triploblastic, right, Subiksha? You got that, right? This is what we're going to discuss shortly. So metazoa, secondarily formed organisms. As I always say, go deeper into the word meta. Secondary zoa are for the animals, secondarily formed ones. Metazoa is something that can be again classified into parazoa. So parazoa, we have only one phylum, Porifera. It is something that can be referred to as the blind offshoot of the evolution. Blind offshoot of evolution. Now, why is it called so? This is something that did not evolve into any other organism. It is the basic level, cellular level of organization. We will discuss shortly why, in spite of it being a multicellular animal, confined to only cellular level of organization. And then we have eumetazoa. What does that mean? True. So these are the true animals which belong to the tissue level, further organized into organ level, further organized into organ system level, where we have tissue level phylum Cnidaria, Ctenophora, organ level Platyhelminthes, organ system Aschelminthes, 2 chordates, right? So that is the initial classification that we'll have to keep in mind. Subiksha says notch, rod-like structure. Yes, notochord. Yes, dear, is a flexible rod-like structure. We are going to discuss that shortly. So the levels of organization. As I already told you, levels of organization are something that will include the cellular level. Cellular level, group of cells. But why not call it a tissue? Because it's something, can you answer that before we move on to the porifera? Obviously, we need to discuss this porifera, right? U refers to true bacteria. Yes, dear, wherever you come across EU, always remember. So these are the little tips and tricks with which you can answer the definition even when you can't recall during the examination. Just give it a thought to the word, you will be able to do it. That's why biology is love, right? It's something that you can, crack no matter what. It's not something of too much of a mystery where you cannot understand things, day-to-day relatable things, right? So yes, you there also means basically true. Yes, sponges, say Subiksha, that's right, cellular level is sponges. My question to you guys is that it also has number of cells put together. Obviously multicellularity, which is why we categorized poriferans also into the animal category. When it has a group of cells, why is that it is not under tissue level? That's my question for you. Keep try and answering in the chat box while I go through with the lesson, right? So that's my question. Then in coelenterates, the arrangement of cells is more complex. It becomes what? The tissue level. Further level of organization is organ level. Where do we find this? In Platyhelminthes. And then we have more advanced organ system level. Organ system level is something that you will find in annelids, arthropods, mollusks, the chordates, all the higher level of organization. So that is one diagram that help you to understand everything in us. So you can see atom, molecule, macromolecule, organelle to the cell to further level. We don't discuss as part of a curriculum or syllabus in zoology, but that's how we go to the minutest level. We start here, cell basically as far as zoology is concerned, where cells organize themselves into tissue, tissues become organs, many organs are working in a coordinated fashion to form an organ system and they form a organism. Yes, further down also you discuss in your chemistry level, right, how atoms get together to form a molecule and then they form a macromolecule. You also have this biomolecules chapter, right, where you can delve deeper about such, right. Subiksha says because a group of cells form tissues, so you think that's the answer. Faisal says absence of nervous and sensory cells. Bingo, Faisal, you got that right. They do not have a sensory system. They do not have certain coordinating system like nervous or sensory system, which is why although it has a group of cells, there's a division of labor that is exhibited by them. Each of the cell is performing a certain function, but still they are not doing it in a coordinated fashion. They are not a group of cells with a common origin or a very specific function, which is why Porifera is something that's confined to the cellular level of organization. Congratulations, Faisal, that's right. Subiksha is going deeper into the chem part, subatomic particles. Do save it for our Aman sir's class, right? Then we move on to How organ system level is the most, advanced one, where you will find in starting from Aschelminthus till the chordates, right? So this may sound basic at this level. You can easily answer while I am asking you now cellular level, you come up with Porifera. When I say tissue level, you come up with coelenterate. It's important that you relate it with the example, point 1. Right, instead of Porifera, say Cycon is given, you should be able to still say it's a cellular level. Point 2, how it is going to be asked in the NEET level. Not just the level of organization, it may be combined with certain other characteristics. Like the question may be asked, which of the following is a triploblastic, organ level of organization with a bilateral symmetry. So this is how you put together 2 and 2. So when you are asked straight, just one character, one phylum, you will be able to answer. Try and relate the different characteristics. That is how you're going to break it, right? That is how you're going to crack the NEET questions. Not just one character, one phylum, but amalgamate, link it, correlate when you are studying cellular level of organization. Yes, poriferans, and recall the other characteristics as well. Now when you're done with Porifera, maybe you're doing Echinodermata, try and recall characteristics of all the other phyla as well. Now this is how you're going to ace the Kingdome Animalia chapter, right? Right, and then we move on further to the digestive system, the complicated. Now why digestive system? It's given as an example. When we go ahead with the organ system of level of organization, yes, everything is working in a coordinated fashion. Now based on the complexity of a certain organ system, again we can classify the organisms. So how do we do it? So here it is. The alimentary canal, I'm trying to put up the utmost simple diagrams for you to understand, is again classified into the incomplete gut and the complete gut. Whether the alimentary canal is incomplete or complete. What do we mean by that? When we say incomplete gut, look at this. There's a single opening, which is something that is helping with both. Look at that arrow. Ingestion here, right? As well as egestion. So this is a single opening helping with both ingestion as well as egestion, which is why it is an incomplete gut or incomplete digestive system. On the other hand, look at the complete one. This mouth, which is helping with the process of ingestion, and this anus, which is helping with the process of egestion. Remember E for exit. That way you can remember that word very well, egestion. From Aschelminthus till chordates, you will find this kind of a system. It's Platyhelminthus, where you will find the incomplete gut. Or this is something that is also referred to as the blind sac, Boplan. It is something that is referred to as the blind sac Boplan. Just like your rice bag that you have at home, or of the wheat bag that you have, right? It's blind on one end. That's how it's able to hold the contents. And it is having opening at the other end so that you can pour in the contents, right? So such kind of a Boplan or the body plan is what is referred to as the blind sac Boplan. Now, based on the circulatory system, another organ system also, we can classify the organisms into the open type circuit system and the closed type of circulation. Very, very, very important, based on which questions are asked at the PMT's level before NEET also, right? So the open and closed circulatory system, how does that work? Open is where the blood is flowing through spaces or sinuses. It is flowing through the open spaces or the sinuses. Sac is incomplete, says Ankita, right? It is something, blind sac is where we call or refer to as the incomplete digestive system. That's right, Ankita. So tube is complete. Yes, we also have the tube within tube Boplan, right? So just when alimentary canal is something that has two openings and there is this outer body wall. Okay, so this is also something that is referred to as the tube within tube plan, right? This is something that is referred to as the tube within tube. There is a straight alimentary canal starting from the mouth till the anus, and there's an outer body wall, right? So this is something that is referred to as the tube within the tube plan, right? And then we have the open and closed circulation system, where I was talking about open circuit system, where the blood is flowing through the open spaces. It is flowing through the open spaces where there may be open-ended blood vessels. Assertion reasoning question. Do not go wrong with it. When you think open system is where the blood is flowing through open sinuses, blood vessels are absent. If at all another statement is given, do not take it. There are large open-ended blood vessels that are present if you take something, certain organisms with an open circulation, right? Open circulation is something, although closed has evolved first in annelids, then you move on to arthropods, it is something that is exhibiting a open circulatory system. Among mollusks, non-cephalocordate mollusks. So that is something that's you need to, non-cephalopod mollusks are something which are exhibiting the open circulation, because cephalopods are exhibiting the closed one. So on the other hand, the closed system, how does the closed system work? There's a network of blood vessels, right, of varying diameters. It can be starting from the larger arteries to arterioles to smaller capillaries, which again together form the venules, veins, right? So it's a closed network of blood vessels. What is the advantage? Yes, guys, can you answer whether there how this is going to be working out? Assertion reasoning question. Yes, dear, there was one that is asked in the 2021 paper. Yes, very little. Nowadays, it is something that has reduced to a lot extent, but one did appear. So there might be a question. Be prepared with the statement questions, assertion, reason as well. So the open and closed type of system. So this is closed, where there is a closed network of blood vessels. I was asking you the question, what is the advantage we have? What is the advantage with the closed blood vascular system over the open one? What is the evolutionary advantage? Yes, you can start answering that while I go ahead with the lesson. So here's where there is open type of circuit system. You see those open-ended blood vessels. It is flowing through the sinus, or it is also referred to as the space. In arthropods, it is referred to as the hemocoel, the functional body cavity, and it's the hemolymph that is flowing through it, right? And the closed blood vascular system, look at how it is flowing through the closed network of blood vessels. Earthworm is the example that's given here, and you can also mark it important as in the course of the evolution, where did we first see a closed circulatory system? That would be phylum Annelida. That can be an important question, like closed blood vascular system first made its appearance. Now these are other little tricks I want you to remember with the animal kingdom. Always concentrate on two things. One, first time appearance. Say for example, larynx has appeared first among amphibians in the chordates, right? Closed blood vascular system, like we are discussing now here, phylum Annelida. So first time appearances is something that's important, or maybe say triploblastic animals are, first ones are the platyhelminthes. And two, exceptions. Always concentrate on the exceptions. Now there are certain phyla, group of organisms where they exhibit certain characteristic. One odd one out is something that's different. If you take phylum Annelida only, for example, there is this example Nereis, right, the marine one, which is unisexual. unlike the earthworms which are hermaphrodites, as well as the leeches which are hermaphrodites. So exceptions are very, very, very important. Even in symmetry, if you observe certain organisms like gastropods, the snails, larva is bilateral, but when it turns out to be an adult, it becomes asymmetrical. So these exceptions, so concentrate on two things: first time appearances, number two, exceptions. These will help you score more, right? And Ankita has already given her answer: more efficient, can reach all the sides. Although she's put it in quite simple words. Very nice, Ankita. That's the answer. Precise regulation, right? What is the advantage we have of the closed blood vascular system over the open one? The blood pressure is precisely regulated, right? That's the evolutionary advantage we have, the regulation of the blood pressure, unlike the open one where there is not much of a control over the blood pressure. Right, Ankita? That's right. Right, closed type of circulation helps in differentiating oxygenated, deoxygenated. Faisal, I would like to put it in a different manner, Faisal, for you. Not all the time, again, closed will help you to put it in a separate manner. Again, we are going to talk about later point of time, maybe single circulation, double circulation, incomplete double circulation, and complete, right? Complete is something that has evolved in aves and mammals. So that's where this oxygenated and deoxygenated blood is completely kept separate. Otherwise, although the rest are closed, you would still find a mixing, right, of oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood, right? So that is the advantage, rightly said by Ankita. Then we talk about the open and closed circulatory system, based on which also organisms can be classified. Next up is symmetry. So what's symmetry? Symmetry is geometrical organization of animals. It's the geometrical organization of the animals. So we are talking around a certain axis. We are talking about how different organs are arranged around certain imaginary axis. We call it symmetry. Now the symmetry is something which can be of different kinds. First of all, when we talk about symmetry, there are organisms without any symmetry also. What do we refer to it as? Asymmetry. Remember from my previous session also, wherever you see that particular prefix a, it would be absence. Asymmetry simply means absence of symmetry. A celome, absence of celome. You can remember it that way. That's another little tip that you can remember for your definitions at the board level, right? So asymmetry is where we are talking about absence of symmetry. So this is something that's exhibited by poriferans. Again, be very, very cautious and pay attention to the NCRT line. Most of the sponges, right? Most of the sponges are asymmetrical because certain of them are radially symmetrical, right? So asymmetry is something which do not have symmetry at all. Radial symmetry. Now this is something that is exhibited by usually the sessile organisms, those which are attached to a substrate. So these organisms usually will have an oroaboral end, this kind of a hydra organization. We call this oral end, which is this is oral end, right? You draw an imaginary axis, it is what is referred to as oroaboral axis, right? As long as your plane is passing through this particular central point, you can always divide this organism into two equal halves, and that's what is called as the radial symmetry. Radial symmetry is where you are passing your plane of division through a center and you always get two equal halves. It is what is called as the radial symmetry. And you see this nice example for the bilateral symmetry. Bi is two, lateral the sides. It has two sides to it. You can actually divide the organism into two mirror images, also referred to as the antemeres. They are referred to as the antemeres, right? So this like the video, that's really nice of you, Subiksha. Keep liking the video, keep commenting, let us know what else can be done, you know, in case you have any questions or you have any other topic to be discussed. We can also make some, you know, shorts videos as well based on certain topics. Let us know more and more feedback so that we can cater to your needs. Thanks, Subiksha, for that like there. So when you can divide the organism into two equal halves, right, by passing your plane of division through the central axis, that's what is called as the bilateral symmetry. So asymmetry, I told sponges. The radial symmetry is by the coelenterates. Within radial, we also have biradial, pentamerous radial. Biradial, two equal halves can be achieved by two planes of division, like a sea anemone. Pentamerous, by 5 planes of division. You already know the answer. Which is the one that exhibits pentamerous radial symmetry, right? Faisal says radially symmetrical animals are almost cylindrical umbrella shape. That's right, dear. You got it right, kiddo. It's basically the coelenterates which exhibit radial symmetry. Now, my question is pentamerous radial symmetry. Which is the organism that exhibits that? You can answer that, right? While I give you a beautiful animation of how bilateral symmetry is working. Look at that crab. I'm passing my plane of division right through the center. You get these two equal halves, which are the mirror images or the antemeres. Why do I call them mirror images? Look at that, how rightly it fits in into this particular shape here, right, when you are dividing. So this is something that is dividing and is exactly fitting into that. This is why we refer to these halves in the bilateral symmetry as antemeres or the mirror images, right? We ourselves can divide ourselves into two equal halves, right? We also do exhibit the bilateral symmetry. What did I tell you? Concentrate always on the exceptions, right? And the first time appearances. Echinoderm says Ankita, Faisal, both of you got it right, dear. Excellent, kiddos, both of you. It's the echinoderm, sea star, or what we commonly refer to as a starfish, although that's a little misnomer. Sea star is the right name, but still either ways, it's important we understand. Basically, you can see 5 radial arms, in fact 5 radial nerves also within. You can divide this organism into two equal halves by 5 planes of division, which is why it's referred to as the pentamerous radial symmetry. So that is the answer given. Excellent that you have given it that way. So sea star is something which as a larva it is exhibiting bilateral symmetry, right? But as an adult it is exhibiting pentamerous radial symmetry. So this, what do we refer to this as? It's called primarily bilateral. It is primarily bilateral, secondarily radial. Very important, although may not be directly asked question, but many ways it can be put forth, because this is one advanced among the non-chordate phyla, but we'll go back to the radial symmetry. If you observe bilateral symmetry, so this is something that you will observe from the platyhelminthes itself, right? It started exhibiting bilateral symmetry, but something that goes back to the radial symmetry is the echinoderm, so based on which questions can be framed in the sense it has a true celome, it is triploblastic, it is but still exhibits radial symmetry. That would be your echinodermata. So always look at your animal kingdom questions given in all your previous NEET examinations. It will be usually many statements given where you are asked to find out true false statements, or it will be match the following, right? Or it will be many characters put together among which you need to choose which suits the phylum or the example. That is how the animal kingdom questions are asked, which is why it's important to concentrate on the examples, the scientific names, exceptions, first time appearances, right? These are all the little nuances that you can focus upon and you get that important score, right? And then we have gastropods. Gastropods are some things which are bilateral symmetry as far as larva is concerned, but it is exhibiting asymmetry when it becomes an adult. As it is growing, it is becoming asymmetrical. This is another exception that you need to remember among the mollusks. The gastropods, the snails, are something which are primarily bilateral but secondarily asymmetrical, right? Secondarily asymmetrical. And then we move on to the embryonic development. This is not given in the textbook as such clearly, but still we are discussing it so that we understand further characteristics. So when a zygote undergoes cleavage, it goes through these cell stages where it becomes a hollow ball called blastula. Remember, in humans it's called blastocyst. There's a difference. And then this blastula undergoes gastrulation in order to be able to form the gastrula. So during this especially, you see these different primary germ layers that are formed. Innermost one is called the endoderm, right? The mid one will be the mesoderm and the outermost layer will be referred to as the ectoderm. In case there are only two primary germ layers, the ecto and the endo, we refer them to as the diploblastic organisms. And in case there is a differentiated middle layer which is mesoderm, we refer it to as the triploblastic organism. Also you see that opening right in the embryonic stage, which is what is referred to as the blastopore. Based on this also, organisms can be classified whether blastopore is developing into the mouth first, they are referred to as the protostomia. In case it develops into anus and mouth develops later secondarily, they are referred to as the deuterostomes. The advanced ones are usually the deuterostomes. Proto meaning first, stoma is the opening. First opening turns out to be the mouth there. Deuterostome, the mouth is secondarily formed, which is why it's a deuterostome, right? All is in the word, right? Everything is in the word. You need to just understand that. Yes, there will be mesoglia also that is found in between, because the triploblastic organisms, like say for example the hydra, the coelentrates, right? There is a glue-like substance in between which is referred to as the mesoglia, right? And then this is fate of blastopore that I just discussed. Proto is the first, right? Stoma meaning the mouth. Mouth forms first in protostomes. Deutero, it's the one that's secondarily formed because blastopore is something that is developing into the anus first, right? So here's your NCRT diagram that's clearly showing how there are two primary germ layers, diploblastic organisms, and three primary germ layers, they are the triploblastic organisms, right? So we already discussed that. Next we move on to the celome, right? So what is a celome? It's basically the space within, it's what is referred to as the body cavity, right? So again, when there is no space, no body cavity at all, easy to understand, it is a celome. What does A stand for? Again, just like I told you previously, like in asymmetry, no celome at all. It's a solid boplan. We call such organisms to be exhibiting a solid boplan. Platyhelminthes, say for example, do not have a space or a cavity in between. So what happens, it is filled with a parenchyma tissue. It is a solid boplan that's observed in these organisms. And then we have a pseudocelome. So what does again pseudo mean? Pseudo basically means a false. Why are we referring it to a false celome? Because there's a body cavity, but it is not lined by the mesodermal layer, right? Look at this. The mesoderm itself is distributed as the scattered pouches. There's a scattered pouch of mesodermal layer that's present in these organisms, which is why these are referred to as the pseudo-celomates. Aschelminthus is the example, and it's very, very, very important you need to remember. I would say celome is again a very important part you need to concentrate for your NEET level. And then we have the true celome or the eucelome. Again, what did I tell you about EU? True, right? These are the true celomates. Again, this can be further categorized into schizocelome and enterocelome. Schizo, which is formed by the splitting of the mesodermal layer, like Annelida, Arthropoda, mollusca. And then we have enterocelome, where it is formed as the outpouching of the gut based on how the celome is formed. Basically, we have these categories. Echinodermata is something that you can give as an example there for the enterocelomates. So, celomates, remember, Platyhelminthes. Pseudocelomates, remember the Aschelminthus, and eucelomates, it's something that's starting with Annelida. Again, Annelida, Arthropoda, mollusca, schizocelome. From Echinodermata, it will be a enterocelome, right? Parenchyma tissue is something that is filling in. When I say there is a space, Subiksha asks that, when we say there is a space, right, there is an empty cavity within the body of an organism, it is what is referred to as a celome. Now, when I say Platyhelminthes or these organisms like liver flukes or the tapeworms, they do not have a cavity. Obviously, it is filled with some kind of a tissue, right? So, the tissue that is present in there, which is not allowing certain movement of the organisms or organs also within the organism, is the parenchymal tissue that's filling in completely to give that solid body plan to those organisms, right? So, that's the celome that we have discussed, and this is one other classification that you will have to keep in mind, how triploblastic organisms. So, where from we are starting with triploblastic, it is phylum Platyhelminthes, right? They can be classified into acoelomates, pseudocelomates and eucelomates, right? Acoelomates, we have the phylum Platyhelminthes, pseudocelomates we have Aschelminthus, and eucelomates, as I told, with schizocelome, it is Annelida, Arthropoda and mollusca. You can shorten it to mango, right? So, that is one way you can remember the schizocelomates. And from Echinodermata is where you will remember that it is an enterocelome, or you can make it also, mollusca, Arthropoda, Annelida, right? These are the ones which are exhibiting the schizocelome, right? And then here is the example for a celomate. Subiksha, you can see how the organs are present within, and this entire thing, it's not a space, it's filled with a certain tissue which is referred to as the parenchyma. From the diagram, it might be more clearer to you, right? And then we move on to the pseudocelomates that we are talking about. It has a celome. See, look at it, there is a cavity, right? But it is not lined by the mesodermal layer, because mesoderm itself is distributed as scattered pouches within. And then we have the eucelomates, which have the true celome, and it is perfectly lined by the mesoderm, because there is an outermost ectoderm, there is an inner endoderm, and in between, let me take another color, is where you will find that there is this mesodermal layer, and there is a cavity that is formed within this particular mesodermal layer, right? So, within the mesoderm is a cavity that is formed, then that is a true celome or a eucelome. That is how it is formed, and there we come out with certain terminology also which help you to understand. This mesodermal layer lining the body wall, you call it the parietal peritoneum, and When it is lining the inner organs, it's called visceral peritoneum. There are certain organs whose ventral surface face the peritoneal layer. We call this retroperitoneal organ. Recall your excretion chapter. Which are the organs which are referred to as the retroperitoneal there? For example, your kidneys are some things which are referred to as the retroperitoneal organs, right? And then we have the schizocelomate, enterocelomate difference. As I was talking, this is something that's formed by the splitting of the mesodermal layer, and that's how schizocelome is formed. On the other hand, look at this structure. It's formed by the outpouching, outpushing or evagination of the gut wall. So we are referring it to as the enterocelomes. Based on the formation, it's formed like this by the splitting of the mesodermal layer. It's what is called as the schizocelome, and if at all it is formed by the outpouching of the gut wall, we are referring it to as the enterocelome, right? And then we have segmentation. The body is divided, segmented, and you also have serial repetition of certain organs. You can see it in an excellent manner in the earthworm, right? So that is what is referred to as the metamerism. Of course, you delve deeper, we also have homonormous metamerism, heteronormous metamerism, where segments are similar and not so similar. Homo is similar, hetero is different, right? We do not have a perfect example in the nature, but Nereus is the closest example that we give for homonormous. And then notochord, very important, mesodermally derived, rod-like structure present on the dorsal side during embryonic development. Each and every word in that sentence is important. Question can be framed based on every word of this. So you can highlight the whole thing as far as notochord is concerned. In case it's present, we call them the chordates, absent the non-chordates. When it is present also, it's persistent throughout in cephalochordates, say for example, or cartilaginous fishes, chondrichthyes for example, right? And it is something that is replaced by a vertebral column. In spite of replacing, there are remnants that are left. What do we refer to that as? Nuclei pulposi, right? It is what is referred to as the nuclei pulposi, remnants of the notochord left in spite of being replaced by the vertebral column, right? So these are the basis for classification. We learnt about levels of organization. We also learnt about the complexity of the organization, whether complete digestive system, open closed circulatory system. Then we moved on to symmetry, as well as based on the primary germ layer, diploblastic, triploblastic organisms, celome. Then we have the segmentation and the notochord, right? As I told you, all of you can answer it very well when precisely one character is given and an example is posed. Try and relate. Okay, when you study a particular phylum, remember all the characters associated with it, and there you go, you can crack those NEET questions, right? So then we move on to the overall classification that we put together. The metazoans are again divided to parazoa, eumetazoa. This part we have learnt in our previous slide. Now we sum up what we learnt in the next few slides. Eumetazoans are some things that can be classified into radiata, bilateria, also diploblastic, triploblastic organisms. You observe that diploblastic organisms are exhibiting radial symmetry, coelenterates, cnidaria, and then triploblastic organisms are exhibiting the bilateral symmetry, right? And then we also have the bilaterians again classified into protostomia and deuterostomia. What did we learn about protostomia, deuterostomia? Blastopore developing into the mouth first, it develops into anus, and mouth develops later, right? So these can be again classified into acoelomates, no coelom at all, platyhelminthes, pseudocoelomates, the ascihelminthes, schizocoelomates, right? As I told, the arm example, arthropoda, and then annelida and the mollusca. Then enterocoelomates to the more most advanced chordates, they are the deuterostomes, which happens to be the enterocelomates. Again, what's the difference between schizocoelom and enterocoelom? It is formed by the splitting of the mesodermal layer. This is formed by the outpouching or the outpushing of the gut wall, right? Subhiksha says symmetry. Symmetry is nothing but basically, dear, how the organs are arranged. Say for example, you take an organism, right? How certain organs are arranged within it is what is referred to as symmetry. Say you're trying to cut the organism into two equal halves with certain plane of division, definitely it is exhibiting symmetry. Say you cut, imagine your birthday cakes, which comes in all the shapes and sizes, right? Nowadays you have these beautiful cakes designed like your, the Frozen theme or your Barbie dolls, right? It's difficult to cut these organisms, these cakes, say for example, into two equal halves, right? They come in different kinds of symmetry, right? Nowadays you have these piñata cakes also, where you just beat it, not cut it. It's difficult to cut these into two equal halves. It's asymmetry. Say you go back to age old, our generation kind of cakes. They used to be either rectangular, square, or just a circle. Imagine a little circular birthday cake. As long as your knife is passing through the center, you always get two equal halves of the cake, right? That's the radial symmetry for you. And then we have the bilateral symmetry. You can cut this into two equal halves, like that beautiful butterfly you can imagine, or ourselves, the human beings. We can be cut into two equal halves only by one plane of division through the central axis. And that's symmetry for you, right? Relatable with day-to-day objects, you understand it. Hope you got that, Subhiksha. And then we move on to the phylum Porifera, right? So just have a little water break while I have some water too. We are done with 1 hour of lecture, one more there. Stay tuned, guys. I recharged myself with some water for my body and batteries for my microphone. Hope you are recharged too. Keep yourselves hydrated. Very, very important. Drink that fluid. Keep the water bottle by your side. So here we are starting with the non-chordate phyla, of which the first one is Porifera. Even before we start Porifera, we already know certain number of points about it already with our discussion from basis. What all do we know? The poriferans belong to cellular level of organization. Why is it cellular level? Faisal clearly explained nicely that there is no sensory or nervous, there is no coordinating system. So we confine it to only the cellular level. Although it's a group of cells, it doesn't belong to tissue level. We call it evolutionary blind offshoot. It did not evolve into any other organisms. When it comes to symmetry, they are mostly asymmetrical, right? And certain of them are radially symmetrical. It's important we remember this way for the statement questions. Generally, you are asked a question of which of the following examples which is asymmetrical, go for the sponge example given there. But statement wise, pay attention to this word, mostly asymmetrical, right? Not all of them are. There may be questions like without exception. Find those characters which can be attributed to all the organisms of certain phylum. At that point of time, you can't take in Porifera into confidence where it comes to say, all of them are asymmetrical. No, mostly asymmetrical, right? So we know their symmetry as well. So what else are we trying to understand about these beautiful organisms in the deep sea out there? When you look at the organism, look at it, it has these pores that are present all over the body, which is why we are referring to them as the Porifera in the first place. These Porifera means pore bearing organisms. Pore bearing organisms, and that's why we refer to them as the Porifera. Let me go back to maroon so that it's more visible for you. So these are the organisms which have pores throughout the body. Initially, when our researchers, scientists saw these organisms, they did not even categorize them as animals, because look at them, they are sessile, they are not even moving. Certain larval stages are free swimming, of course, but they are growing attached to a substratum. They are sessile organisms, right? So what is that particular thing which allowed us to categorize them into animals? What made us think, no, these are not the plants just because they are not moving, they are not locomoting, they are actually animals. Their canal system, also referred to as the aquiferous system, right? In the next diagram, I will try and explain about the canal system, which is the most unique characteristic. Also compare it with the Echinodermata, later point of time, that also has water vascular system, right? That also has some kind of a water flow within the body, that's called water canal system or ambulacral system. Here it is referred to as the canal system or the aquiferous system. So they have n number of cells which are helping them with the division of labor. Let's look at one diagram next, you will be able to understand the sponge. So there is this outer layer, choanoderm, which is formed by, pinacoderm. Let me take an eraser there. Right. They are the pinacocytes and form the pinacoderm. On the other hand, internally you will find the collar-like flagellated cells which are referred to as the choanocytes. Very, very, very important, based on which questions are asked in the NEET level. Choanocytes are those which are moving, the flagellated cells which allow the water to move in. So what are these pores referred to as? It's called ostia, right? And it goes into the central cavity. What is this cavity called? Spongocele, or also called paragastric cavity. Remember, in the coelentrates it's called gastrovascular cavity. Here it's paragastric cavity, and out it goes through an opening called the osculum, right? It goes out through what is called as the osculum. So this circulation, simplest form that you see, is what is referred to as the canal system. It comes out through the, comes in through the pores, ostia, gets into the cavity, the spongocele or the paragastric cavity, goes out through the osculum. Now how does that help? What if it is as a canal system? It is bringing in the oxygen, right? It is bringing in the food that it requires, because it's sessile, it's not moving. It's taking away the waste, excretory waste, as well as the carbon dioxide. In fact, it helps with the reproduction also when it brings the sperm of other sponges. It's a hermaphrodite, right? Where it is fertilizing with ovum, and it itself forms free swimming larvae which go out there, settle and grow into an individual sponge. So canal system is helping with various things, the nutrition, right? These are filter feeders or the suspension feeders. Water comes in, they are taking in food that are formed. So poriferans are fixed. You could say that they are actually growing attached to a substratum, right? Sponges show growth, metabolism, yes, and that's also the reason why it's animal, but we first identified it to be animal with the water, the canal system or the aquiferous system, the water flow that you observe. So along with that, you will find a skeletal system. It has what are called as the spicules. So based on whether or these spicules are made up of calcium or silica, or it also has the spongin fibers, these organisms are classified further again into the calcarea, hexactinellida, right, demospongia. These are the groups among sponges based on these spicules, whether they are made up of calcium right, or whether they are made up of silica, or they also have what are called as the spongin fibers. Based on these, we are classifying these organisms. Yes, there are lot of cells. You will find the amoebocytes, there are these choanocytes, they also have these archaeocytes, which are the interstitial cells, which or the totipotent cells, which are basically helping with differentiating into any other cell of the body, right? So that is the sponges for you. As I told, it is classified into calcarea, cycon, leucosolini are the examples you need to remember, hexactinella, euplectella, hyalonema, demospongia, spongilla, euspongia. NCRT given examples are quite important. Freshwater sponge, right, bath sponge. Remember the common names as well. Make a list of those names today itself and hang in somewhere where you can see on a daily basis. That's very, very important, right? So remember the examples that way, or keep grilling each other continually with the scientific names every single day. When you call up your friend or meet them, try and grill each other with at least 5 to 10 scientific names on a daily basis. You will definitely remember them, right? So that is about sponges. Take home points from it. Remember, it has canal system, it has collar flagellated cells, which are the choanocytes, which are helping with the circulation of the water. It has archaeocytes, which are like the totipotent cells, right? It has pore bearing body. It has spicules, that is made up of calcium or silica or the spongin fibers based on which we classify them, and those are the examples. So here we go, cycon, spongilla, euspongia, only 3 examples provided in the NCRT text, and you should be able to remember them. Then we have coelenterata, cnidaria. What are the things that we already learnt about cnidaria? These are some things which are helping, which are basically having a symmetry of radial symmetry. Diploblastic organisms, we didn't see that in sponges. There are no primary germ layers. Yes, in a way, certain old books would have given you something like pinacocyte, choanocyte are there. To an extent, you can consider it a diploblastic organisms. Orthodox zoologists wouldn't, right? So no primary germ layer formation there. When it comes to coelenterates, yes, they are diploblastic organisms. They exhibit radial symmetry. Sea anemones exhibit biradial symmetry, right? So these are certain things that we already know of. Ankita, yes dear, it is radial symmetry. So these are organisms that are mostly marine. Again, both these you can attribute that also. Poriferans, cnidarians, they are mostly marine because there are freshwater species in both. So where from the name comes? Porifera, it is pore bearing organisms. Why do we call it cnidaria? Because these are cnidaria, cnidocytes comes from a word nettle like, stinging. They have stinging cells called the cnidocytes or the cnidoblasts, which is why they are categorized under phylum Cnidaria, right? So they are exhibiting different forms. Now this is very, very important, right? These are organisms which are exhibiting different forms. Polymorphism is something that we learn in this particular phylum. Of this, the cylindrical form is colonial and sessile, not moving. The umbrella form is solitary and free swimming. Whatever we are referring to these forms as polypoid form, and this is the medusoid form. So polymorphism, very, very important feature of these organisms. And when you look at the diploblastic organisms, they clearly have an ectoderm outer. You see those cnidocytes also here, and there is an inner endoderm, right? Gastrodermis is present in them. So these are the important cells that you need to remember, which is why these are referred to as the cnidaria. Look at these cnidocytes. There is this stinging cell which is closed by a lid-like operculum. As soon as this cnidocyl is something that's sensing some kind of a danger or nearby prey or anything, the butt just opens and this is shoved into the animal. So temporarily it's paralyzing it or maybe killing it also, because this nematoblast, right, is filled with some hypnotoxin. it is filled with a hypnotoxin which temporarily paralyzes the prey or maybe even totally kill it, right? So these are important cells that you need to remember. And look at the nerve net system. Where did the nerve system or some kind of a primitive neurons arise? Which phylum? That would be Cnidaria. They have these apolar neurons which form a nerve net. Later in neural control coordination, this particular point is important. Most primitive neurons are apolar. These do not have an axon or a dendrite, but they form a net-like nerve net that's present in these organisms, right? So they have polymorphism, and one other very, very important thing is they exhibit metagenesis. Highlight that, quite important. So what's metagenesis? If you go back previous one, this polypoid form is something that is giving rise to medusoid form by asexual reproduction. On the other hand, medusoid form undergoes sexual reproduction and give rise to the polypoid form. So this alteration of generation that you see, not precisely that, but you see that polypoid form, asexual reproduction to give rise to medusoid form, which in turn undergoes sexual reproduction to give rise to polypoid form. What are we referring to this particular phenomenon as? It's called metagenesis. It is what is referred to as the metagenesis. So from Cnidaria, take home points are many. It exhibits different forms, polymorphism, it is alternating sexual asexual reproduction, it is exhibiting metagenesis, it has these stinging cells called the cnidoblasts or the cnidocytes, and this is triploblastic organism, of course, with the radial symmetry, right? So these are all the important points you need to remember. Physalia, Portuguese man of war; Adamsia, sea anemone; Penatula, sea pen; Gorgonia, sea fan; and Meandrina, brain coral. Certain other techniques you can remember, certain scientific names are, it's in the scientific name. Say pen, right? Penatula. Sea pen is the common name, Penatula is the scientific name. Certain names you can remember them that way as well. So the NCRT examples are definitely quite important. It also has a skeleton made up of calcium carbonate. You find these beautiful accessories, you know, made of corals. Where is it coming from? It's nothing but the skeleton of these organisms. Now, of course, it is banned because coral reefs are rich in biodiversity. It's very, very important we preserve them, right? So how are they classified? They're classified into hydrozoa, mostly the polypoid forms, the scyphozoa, mostly the medusoid forms, and anthozoa, which have either of them also, which is where we are getting those corals, right? So these are the anthozoa, only polypoid forms we have. Scyphozoa, we have only medusoid forms, sorry, and hydrozoa will have both polypoid as well as the medusoid forms. And next we move on to Ctenophora. So why the name again? Comb bearing. These are the comb bearing organisms. These are also what are referred to as sea walnuts or comb jellies. Most important points you need to remember about them: bioluminescence. Imagine how those beautiful creatures are, you know, emitting light, life-like organisms which are emitting light, right? So, phenomenon of metazoa. Subiksha, that's not clear, dear. You can rephrase that question for me. Metagenesis, metamerism, yes, they are. Meta meaning what? Okay, you mean that. Meta usually is something which is secondary. Metagenesis is secondarily formed. That's how we come up with the name, right? Meta, again, merism, there we are talking about serially repeated kind of segments there. Usually wherever you can relate with the word, with the origin, meta is something which is secondary, right? Like metanephridia, protonephridia are first formed ones. Metanephridia are secondary formed. Metazoa, right? Metagenesis, wherever you are coming across this meta, it is usually the secondary, right? Hope I answered that for you. So bioluminescence is where we are talking about life form emitting that natural light. So beautiful forms under those deep dark seabeds, right? They also have comb plates, 8 ciliated row of these comb plates which are helping them with the locomotion. It's very, very important you remember unique characters and the associated functions. Say for example, radula. It's the rasping organ in the mollusca. Parapodia, they help in locomotion in the annelids. Here we are talking about comb plates which are helping with locomotion in ctenophores. So certain unique characteristics clearly, nicely highlighted in your NCRT text, right? Those are quite important. And these are the organisms which are hermaphrodites but reproduce only by sexual means. Very, very important. They reproduce only by the sexual means. And 2 important examples include Pleurobrachia and Ctenoplana. Always learn your Ctenophora chapter synonymous to Pleurobrachia. You will be able to remember that easily. Pleurobrachia, although word sounds a little complicated, whenever you study characteristics of Ctenophora, right, bioluminescence, immediately say Pleurobrachia exhibits bioluminescence. Ciliated comb plates, Pleurobrachia has ciliated comb plates. That way you should be able to remember. Ctenoplana, of course, is quite relatable, like the Ctenophora, right? That example you will be able to recall during the examination, right? So this is one nice and beautiful one, how they are exhibiting that bioluminescence. And this is the diagram where it is talking about how it has the mouth and 2 anal pores, right? It has this boreal canal, it has a pharynx, it is having these, because of these the tentacles, you will not be able to divide this organism to 2 equal halves exactly. So they also exhibit the biradial symmetry. One other important slide from this particular chapter I want you to remember is how these 2 are very similar, Cnidaria and Ctenophora. Both are diploblastic organisms, right? Both exhibit radial symmetry, right? But they have cnidocytes, these do not. These have what are called as coloblasts, which are helping with the anchorage. Cnidoblasts there are helping with the anchorage, prey capture, right? So here lasso cells are the ones that are present. That is a little unique. Comb plates also, of course. So they do not have cnidocytes. They are monoecious in nature. Their absence of asexual reproduction. Remember, they are reproducing only by the sexual means. So this contrast comparison between these 2 phyla especially is important, based on which MCQ can be asked at the NEET level. Platyhelminthes, what do we know about Platyhelminthes already? So Bhiksha, what is extracellular, inter, intra? So these are little words which help you to understand certain other definitions also. Always remember, intra is within, right? Intra is within that. It can be cellular or it can be anything. Intra is something that is a word that's telling within. Inter is between, right? In some of the states, actually what you study 11th and 12th is also referred to as intermediate. It's between your school and the college, right? Inter is something in between. Extra will be the outside, right? It can be any cavity, say for example spongocele or alimentary canal, we are referring it to the extracellular. Inter is usually between 2 cells, right? Intercellular junctions, some of them that we study later in the tissue chapter, right? Intra is within the cell. Intracellular digestion is a very important feature that you see in the sponges, whereas intra and extracellular is observed in the Cnidaria and Ctenophora. That is also quite an important point. So what do we know about Platyhelminthes? First of all, the name, flat worms. Platy is flat, helminths are for the worms. These are dorso-ventrally flattened body. You know, dorsal is the upper side, ventral is the lower. They are dorso-ventrally flattened organisms. These are some things which are exhibiting triploblastic for the first time, because we saw diploblastic only previously in Cnidaria and Ctenophora. These are ones which are exhibiting dorso-ventrally flattened body, the triploblastic organisms. Solid plan, they are acoelomates. They do not have a coelom. Hooks and suckers are present in some parasitic forms. They need anchorage within the organism, right? So they are present in some, not all. Specialized cells, flame cells, mark it important, unique feature again. Flame cells, also referred to as the protonephridia. Later we will see them in the amphioxus, branchiostoma, cephalochordata as well. Little difference here, it is ciliated, there it is flagellated, right? So the flame cells are helping with osmoregulation and excretion, very important. Fertilization is internal. These are some things that can cause diseases as well in the humans, right? So the tinea, fasciola, just two important examples that you have there, right? How are they classified? There are free living ones like Dugacea, Planaria, high regeneration. These are exhibiting very, very high regeneration. That is quite important. You cut this organism into many different pieces. It can still develop its head also, right? These are exhibiting, the planarians, the free living forms exhibit high regeneration. There are trematodes which are fasciola, the tapeworms like the Tinea saginata, right? Tinea solium, right? So that's platyhelminthes. Look at how complicated some of their life cycle is. Most of the parasitic forms, this is one important thing for their survival, right? Anchorage means attachment, right, Faisal? That's right. Subiksha was asking osmoregulation. It's the fluid balance, dear, within the body. It is the balance of the fluids that is maintained. So primarily that's the function, and secondarily it is helping with the excretion, right? That is what is osmoregulation, right? Anchorage is the support where it is able to, you know, attach itself and be able to stable. Say for example, a ship has to park itself somewhere, it will float in the water, right? So there is this heavy weightage like an anchor that's put in the water, so the ship stays there, it's not moving. So that is anchor, right? And the term that is used for something to be stable, it's what is referred to as the anchorage, right? Hope that is clear. Extracellular is outside of the cell, dear. Usually we are referring it to as some kind of a within cavity that is occurring. We are referring it to as the extracellular. Within there is a cellular layer out of which there is, you know, there is a space outside of the cell, anywhere is referred to as the extracellular. So complicated life cycle that they have for the survival. Then we have Aschelminthes. Why are these called roundworms? You cut them in the cross section, they are circular. This is why they are referred to as the roundworms. For the first time, you will observe that they exhibit sexual dimorphism. Important point. What do we mean by this? Di is two, morph is forms. Two forms in the sense here we are referring to the male and the female. Look at that difference. Male has a little curved tail there. On the other hand, female has a straight tail. They have a couple of copulatory spicules which help in copulation. Here they are absent. Everything opens into a common opening called cloaca, genital pores, anus. Here genital pore is somewhere present here, anus is present here, right? So these are the morphological differentiation. You can look at the organism and tell which is male and female. It's the sexual dimorphism that's first time observed in Aschelminthes. You already know that they are pseudo celomates, right? Roundworms, they have organ system level of organization. The bilateral, they are pseudo celomates, and they have a muscular pharynx. Now this is a unique character that you have to look at, right? This is having a muscular pharynx. And important examples include Ascaris roundworm, Vacraria filarial worm, Ankylostoma hookworm. later in human health and diseases also it's quite important that you remember that these cause diseases. For example, the filarial worm causes the filariasis or the elephantiasis, the ascaris roundworm causes the ascariasis, right? So these are also certain disease causing worms. And then we have Annelida. Unique thing about it, you look at the organism, you immediately make out metamerism, right? The very name Annelida comes from the word annulus, which means a little ring, right? They have little rings like structure. You look at the entire body, it is divided into the segments or metameres, which is why it is said to exhibit the metamerism, right? And it has the parapodia. I did mention unique characteristics are always important. They are present in the marine forms. The flap-like lateral appendages, they are present on the sides which are helping with the locomotion. Of course, setae are present in the terrestrial forms like in that of the annelids, right? These nereis is something that is unisexual. That's what is again important that you remember. Sexes are separate in nereis, unlike the earthworms and leeches which are, you know, monoecious. These are some things which are, copulation means reproduction, right? Copulation is something that means it is reproduction we are talking about, which is the sexual intercourse that we are talking about. So we refer to these as the previous ones, the copulatory structures. I saw the screen just now. Faisal already cleared that also for you. Nice. So earthworms and leeches are the ones which are bisexual. So what are the important three examples? Nereis, Parenchyma, Hyoidinaria. About Parenchyma, we have a whole new topic again in the tissues where you can learn and relate every characteristic with the annelids, right? So take home points from this: metamerism, parapodia, unisexual marine worms, right? And here is where true celome is something that's starting. Closed circulatory system is something that is observed. So first time appearances, I told you, are very important. So what do we observe for the first time? It's the closed circulatory system that you observe in these organisms for the first time, one. And this is where you also find the true celome. Of course, it's a schizocelome, but true celome is something that is formed. The egg-laying ones, right? In Ascaris, again, in annelids, we have different ones, Subiksha. There are oviparous ones, like the Ascaris, right? There are these ovoviviparous ones also. They lay eggs within and the eggs are delivered, like the Viceraria. 2 lakh eggs per day. That's also quite important. They have very high reproductivity so that they can help with the chances of survival. In lower organisms, if you see, the chances of survival is lesser. Many die at the egg stage, at the larval stage. The chances of survival, they are living out there in a very risky environment, right? Lot of predators and all. So usually the reproductivity rate is pretty high in these some of these endoparasites and some other lower organisms if you observe. So there is oviparity that is observed, there is ovoviviparity also that is observed. So these are divided into polychaeta. Poly is many, chaetae or the setae are present, oligo less number of chaetae, and hyoidinae because they have this hyoidin, an anticoagulant in the saliva when they are, you know, sucking blood. You know, these are sanguivorous animals from the any animals, cattle or the human beings. The blood doesn't coagulate because of this hyoidin, which is why it is named so. So polychaeta we have nereis, very important example. Oligochaeta we have Parenchyma lumbricus and hyoidinaria, which are NCRT given examples, so the N there. So arthropoda, you will observe two important things. Jointed appendages, very name arthropoda. What does that mean? Jointed appendages. And what is the second important characteristic? Chitinous exoskeleton. These are the two most important characteristics that allow them to succeed. You know, this is the largest phylum, it has the largest class, which is Insecta, and these are the organisms which are most successful in terms of whether they are existing in the aquatic environment, terrestrial environment, aerial environment, just because of these two important characteristics, right? How do Aschelminthus reproduce, right? Aschelminthus is something that is exhibiting sexual dimorphism, the sexes are separate, so these are exhibiting obviously the sexual reproduction, right? If you look at the life cycle in human health and diseases that you have studied, right? In the intestine itself, they are undergoing the sexual reproduction to release the eggs through that of the feces, right? And they again continue the life cycle when contaminated food is eaten by another human being infected with these eggs, right? So that is how chitin, chitin you would have learnt in your botany, dear Subiksha, you have definitely recalled it correct. In biomolecules, you would have learnt about it being a polysaccharide, right? Chitin is a polysaccharide which is the content or which is composing the skeleton in these organisms. So it's a tough one which is helping them with the survival. They are exhibiting head, thorax, abdomen, body division, which we are referring to as stigmatization. It's a form of metamerism where you see a group of segments are performing a specific action. You know, when you study cockroach, head is a fusion of 6 segments, right? Head has a specific function. Thorax is made up of 3 segments. Abdomen, 10 segments when it comes to cockroach, of course, right? So that group of segments are referred to as stigmata, and this phenomenon where they perform specific function is stigmatization. You see n number of respiratory organs, gills, book lungs, tracheal system. You also see sensory organs like antennae, eyes. So there is a cephalization that is seen, formation of a distinct head. Now this starts at Platyhelminthes itself with bilateral symmetry, but it becomes more and more evident when you go through the course of evolution. Malpighian tubules are helping with excretion in the terrestrial ones. There are also the green coxal glands that are present in the others. So again, concentrate on the marine arthropods a little bit among these in order to be able to understand the difference, because it's a huge phylum which is Trilobita, the extinct ones. If you have watched that mummy movie, all those little bugs that are graphically representing beautifully the trilobite group, right? Of course, whether they would eat away flesh like that and all is exaggerated, but a beautiful representation of how these organisms would be, you can see in that movie. And then we have Chelicerata, which has Xyphosura and Arachnida, the spiders, right? And Xyphosura is important where you learn the limulus, the king crab, living fossil, something that existed from very long time period without undergoing much of a change. The same day cockroaches come in your dream, that means you have learnt it right, so not to worry at all. If you are, constantly thinking about something that appears in your dream, you are actually learning it very well. So not to worry about it, Subiksha, at all. If you are dreaming of a cockroach, you can be proud of yourselves of the achievement because you have learnt that, you've been thinking that very good. They're not, sometimes you feel that they are a little creepy, but as a part of the subject, you need to know all about cockroach for your NEET examination to get that stealth and white coat on your body, right? So Bombyx, Epix and Laxifer, these are some things that are economically important insects. And Anopheles, Culex, Aedes are the vectors, Anopheles causing the malaria, Culex the filariasis, Aedes which is causing that dengue and chikungunya, right? So these are vectors as well. These are large number of insects. Of course, we have crustaceans. The prawn, pellibone comes in your laboratory experiments. Then we have Chilopoda, Diplopoda, the millipedes, centipedes, right? Centipedes and millipedes come under those groups. Largest phylum, largest class. A little bit of concentration definitely required on this phylum to learn it a little better, right? And then we have mollusca. We already know these are the unsegmented ones. So that is one thing that you need to remember. After we start with Annelida, they are segmented. Annelida and Arthropoda, these are unsegmented. Remember this point, right? And these are some things which cephalopods exhibit closed circuit system, whereas other groups are the cephalopods are closed, whereas others are open circulatory system. So cephalopods of this particular group are the only ones which exhibit closed circulatory system. All others are open. This is the radula I was talking about, which is helping with rasping, the feeding structure that you find in these organisms. The body divisions are important: head, muscular foot, and visceral hump. They have gill-like feathers, right? They have gill-like feathers that you can see in the mantle cavity called ctenidia. This is a unique feature, but radula is something that's questioned before, is important for your NEET level. They have these sensory tentacles, right? And this is the file-like radula that I was talking about, right? Mosquitoes, right? These are some things which are coming under our, insecta group. Yes, they are vectors. Right, bioclassification is a kingdom, not a phylum, right? Mollusca is the second largest phylum. Yes, there are always debates and ambiguity about the divisions. I'll tell you about one when we move on to the chordates as well. But as of zoology is concerned, this is something that is the second largest phylum, of which the largest group would be gastropods, right? The snails. So these are important example. Pila you would see mostly given synonymous to mollusca. Wherever mollusca question is to be asked, you will find that pila are the apple snail, dentalium, the tusk shell, pinctada, the pearl oyster, neopilina, which is the connecting link, important example, sepia, loligo, as well as that of the octopus, some things which are without shell also. Pearl formation is actually a defense mechanism in these organisms. We can discuss when we have a class just about mollusca someday, right? So these are the important examples. And echinodermata. Chose this diagram to give you the importance of water vascular system or ambulacral system. So this is something that is going through the small sieve-like structure, madrepora, goes to the ring canal, right, goes through this particular stone canal, then this ring canal, then this radial canal, and to the lateral canal, right. Those little tube feet are helping with the suction, and they are able to move on the vertical sections also just because of that attachment. The tube feet act like little feet, also act like little suction ones, right, if they have to attach somewhere, right. Kingdom is definitely a much larger group, Subhiksha, under which we have several, like say for example this entire chapter that we are discussing is Kingdom Animalia, of which we have the non-chordate phyla, the chordates, including us the human beings, the smallest to the largest. Like we have two major ones will be the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom, right, where we are again further dividing them into that of the phyla, right. So important examples are the most commonly given ones. You will see that Asterias, synonymous, it is given C star. Then we have Echinus, Ophura, Antedon. These are the important examples we have. So this is one table that help you further understand the classification. Nowadays classification, not much of questions are asked, but just for our knowledge and understanding we need to know this. Then hemichordata, most important thing about this is it's the connecting link between the non-chordates, chordates. Now for a long time it is something that is in fact included under non-chordates, thinking that this particular structure that you see, right, the proboscis gland, or this particular structure that they has, the buccal diverticulum. Buccal diverticulum. It's a little diverted structure from the roof of the buccal cavity, is something that's referred to as the stomochord. For a long time it was thought to be notochord, so it is included under chordates. Later we realized it's just a diverted tubule from the roof of buccal cavity, which is a stomochord, and so it is brought back to chordates. So from the very name you understand hemi, half chordate, right? It is something which is referred to as the half chordate, this particular group, right? And if you are looking at Echinodermata, these are spiny bodied organisms. If at all I have not given you the terminology, it has these calcareous ossicles. Compare it with the sponges. There we find spicules, here we find the ossicles. Then mollusca, it is the soft nuts. They have a soft body underneath the calcareous shell, which is why that particular term there, right? So hemichordata is for half. Here important points is they are worm-like organisms. They have proboscis, collar and trunk. Body divisions are important, based on which I can frame a match the following question, right? Arthropoda, we have that of the head, thorax, abdomen. Then we have in the mollusk's head, the visceral hump and the muscular foot when it comes to the mollusks. Here you can see that there is proboscis, collar and trunk, right? So balanoglossus and saccoglossus, two nice and easy examples you can remember here. Balanoglossus is a common example that's given anywhere when they are questioning about this hemichordata. Also recall about all these non-chordate phyla, exclusively marine. What did you find? Echinodermata, which is exclusively marine. Then we have hemichordata, and then one more. Can you tell me that, right? Aurora, okay, your question is about where I am from. That is it pertinent to animal kingdom anyway, dear? Wherever we are from, we are Indians basically. From definitely the height and physical features, my morphological features, you can definitely understand I'm an Indian, right? So that's what is important, right? And the question I was asking, exclusively marine. Echinodermata, I gave you one already. Hemichordata, I gave you another one. Third one, right? What is the third phylum which is exclusively marine? This, try and answer that question for me while I go ahead with the lesson. Which is the third phylum which is exclusively marine, right? Chordates, four characteristics basic: nerve cord, notochord, gill slits, postanal tail. Four fundamental characteristics, right, which are the nerve cord, which is dorsal, and then we have the notochord, right, which is flexible rod-like structure. We say dorsal, but observe that it is ventral to nerve cord and dorsal to the alimentary canal, right? And then we have these gill slits in the pharynx. These are present in the pharynx, which are quite evident in the embryonic stage of the advanced organisms like humans also. They can help with filtration, filter feeding in the lower organisms. They help with respiration, certain others. They confine to only embryonic stage when it comes to us. The post-anal tail, right? So this is something that is present post to the anus. Four fundamental characteristics. Heart also is given in your NCRT table, which is ventral in the chordates, if at all present dorsal in the non-chordates, right? So these are the four basic fundamental characteristics that we are talking about when it comes to chordates. Very, very important table. Please make a note of this particular one. And then we move on to urochordata, right? Cephalochordata. They are first of all referred to as proto-chordates, first ever chordates. Now why uro? Uro means tail. We have the notochord present in the tail, right? Cephalo, it is standing for head. Is it present only in the head? No, it is present from head through the tail, and it is persistent throughout the life, unlike urochordates where it is present only in the larval tail, right? So the entire body in these organisms also, you will observe that there is a tunica, test or an outer covering, which is why they are referred to as tunicates. Like Subiksha said, biomolecules you will find tunicin also, maybe you will find a little. So tunicin is also something that's composing this particular one, right? So the question I asked, not many of you are coming up with the answers. Exclusively marine phyla. I gave you that of, Echinodermata, and then hemichordata. What is the third one, right? And then we have the phylum chordate, which we have the urochordata, cephalochordata, and the vertebrates or the craniates. Look at this, larval tail is more advanced compared to the adult. What do we call this phenomenon? Retrogressive metamorphosis. It's called the retrogressive metamorphosis. This is quite important phenomenon where you see that the larva is actually more advanced, free swimming with the tail, with the notochord. Adult becomes sessile without notochord, without the tail and all, right? So let me give you the answer. Exclusively marine will be the Ctenophora. Ctenophora is exclusively marine, then Echinodermata, and then Hemichordata. Let me pose another question from the non-chordate phyla. Which are the two minor phyla? Minor phyla is something that will have less number of species underneath it categorized. So which are the minor phyla among the non-chordates, right? So this is the retrogressive metamorphosis that we observe, and then we have the cephalochordates, which have this fish-like body. They are sedentary. You can see that they are half buried in the seabed and little, oral hood with these tentacles. It's a wheel organ that helps with obtaining the food in these organisms, right? Craniates are with the cranium, and here we go, the divisions among the vertebrates. When we say agnatha, A again stands for absence, gnatha for the jaws. Without jaws, where ostracoderm is extinct, we are not bothered about it. Cyclostomata, circular mouth. Two important examples we have under this is the Mexin and the lamprey, or the petromyzon, right, or the hagfish. Two very, very important example, very important. Small topic which fetches you score in your NEET examination. Concentrate on cyclostomes. Those with the jaws, gnathostomata, stoma is the opening guarded by the jaws. We have Pisces, right, which bear fins, and tetrapoda, which may be 4 limbs. Poda is limbs, tetra, four. We have amphibia, reptilia, aves, and the mammalia, right? So this is the ambiguity, Subiksha, I was discussing when we talked about it previously. Pisces amphibians, they are called ichthyopsida, sauropsida, will be reptiles, aves, and mammals. Now reptiles and aves, sorry. Now we do not use that classification, but anamniotes, if you are observing without amnion, reptilia, aves, and mammalia are with the amniotic membrane, which is why amniotes. And then we have poikilotherms, important point, cold-blooded ones, which it comes to Pisces amphibians, reptilia. Homeotherms will be just the aves and mammalia, right? Reptiles will be again poikilotherms. These are characteristics which can be combined and given, right? You're confused about what, dear Subiksha? You be clear. Old classification I was just discussing. I was just telling about how ambiguous. You were talking about mollusca being kingdom, right? For that I quoted this one, right? Metazoa, Angrilla, basically we are talking about the kingdom Animalia, under which we the entire thing can be referred to as the metazoa. Comes from the name secondarily formed organisms, unlike the plants. So under metazoa again we have parazoa and eumetazoa, true animals, parazoans which are little sidelined like the poriferans, right? So cyclostomes, as I told, is something that's nicely exhibiting anadromous migration. From this you can observe how it migrates to the fresh water, lays its eggs and starves itself to the death, right? So chondrichthyes, osteichthyes, please do concentrate on this particular table here. Very, very, very important at your NEET level, right? So the differences between chondrichthyes and osteichthyes. Understand, chondrichthyes are the cartilaginous fishes, osteichthyes are the bony fishes, right? Sharks, rays and all, they come under chondrichthyes. The bony fishes are some things which have an air bladder, which have ability for the buoyancy, unlike these which have to swim constantly to avoid the sinking. Placoid scales is a feature of the sharks, pointy scales, right? These on the other hand have ctenoid, ganoid scales. Claspers are present in male sharks which help in copulation. Like as I said, copulation is the sexual reproduction, the sexual intercourse, where there are these structures that are helping in the male sharks which are absent, again you would see. So the differences is very, very important, based on which NEET questions are framed. Amphibia, head and trunk are two divisions. Of course, salamanders have tails, exception there. Tympanum, first time appearance, very, very important. This is something which is helping with the hearing in these organisms. Cloaca, right, you did see that's a common opening for respiratory tract, the digestive tract, absolutely sorry. The cloaca is a common opening for the genital pores, right, the digestive tract. When it comes to respiration, you will find cutaneous respiration in frogs through skin. It can be buccopharyngeal, it can be pulmonary respiration. In the larval forms, gills also. Bufo, rana, hyla. Ichthyophis is a very, very important example, being a limbless amphibian, doesn't have a limbs, looks like a little snake, also called blind snake or Sicilian, which is terrestrial, which exhibits the parental care also protecting its eggs. So apoda, without limbs, absence of limbs. Urodela, tail bearing ones, uro, tail. Anura, without the tail, frogs. These are the three groups you will find. Reptilia, it's very, very important to understand the egg, how they have successfully become terrestrial, unlike amphibians, which are both terrestrial as well as aquatic, because they could lay these hard shelled eggs, important in your evolutionary chapter also, cleidoic eggs. So very important step in the evolution which allowed them to be completely terrestrial, right? There are annelids which are bisexual as well, right? Which are the leeches as well as the, that's the question from the chat box, so I'm answering. So there are these leeches and earthworms which are bisexual, have both the sexes in them. But there are marine forms like Nereis which are unisexual, where sexes are separate, right? So reptilia, important characteristics being they have a dry cornified skin, unlike amphibians which have a moist skin. This is one other terrestrial adaptation that they have. They are three-chambered, but crocodiles four-chambered. Very, 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 very important, asked in all your Olympiad examination, PMTs, NEET, everywhere. Easy question that you can answer. Four-chambered reptile will be a crocodile. They can shed their scales. These are oviparous and development is direct. Examples are quite important, everything that is provided in here, right? So whether it's Calyx or Hemidactylus, you can also remember poisonous, non-poisonous snakes. Python, for example, is non-poisonous, right? So these are all the groups. You will also see Sphenodon, which is a living fossil in here among the classification. There are Squamata, which has lizards and snakes, Crocodilia, there's Rhynchocephalia, Chelonia, which is a little different in the group again, which has a large carapace, lives for a very long time period, tortoise to be precise, right? So aves, flight adaptations are quite important. So I made a table for you, whether feathers, wings, flight muscles, pneumatic bones, endothermy, high metabolic rate, keen sense of vision, absence of urinary bladder. Many organs they would have lost for the flight, right? They have lost this urinary bladder, say for example, there's a single ovary, they light-weighted ones, air cavity have in the long bones like the pneumatic bones. So this is another special group where we have archaeorniths, Archaeopteryx, important example, which is a connecting link between the birds and the reptiles. It has both bird and reptilian characteristic, right? And then we have neorniths, which are classified again into the flightless and the flying birds. So birds is a special category there with lot of unique characteristics. Say for example, it has syrinx, right, for the voice box, unlike the larynx in the amphibians. So some of them it's quite advanced where they sing those beautiful songs, right? And then we have finally mammalia, two important characteristics, hair and the mammary glands. Two very important characteristics that we have in the group mammalia, right? So these are the most advanced. You will find there is a complete double circulation, of course, found in aves also. Both these groups also exhibit homeothermy, warm-blooded ones. In mammals, again, exception is prototherians, egg-laying ones, duck-billed platypus, right? The spiny anteater like the echidna, they are the egg-laying ones. Metatheria, like those kangaroos, macropus is an example, which carry their very young ones in the pouch, very low gestation time period, very small gestation time period where they crawl into that, pouch and, start growing there. And then we have the eutheria, the true mammals, which we have n number like the Felis, Canis, Rattus, Elephas, Equus, right? And some of them are aquatic. Those are also important like Delphinus, dolphin, Balanoptera, the blue whale. These are important examples. There is an aerial one also, quite important example, which is the bat, right? Pteropus or the flying fox is a very important example here, which is an exception again in the mammals. Aves are monkeys, not at all, dear. Monkeys are mammals, right? They are not birds. Yes, they are arboreal, they live on trees, but these are some things which are falling under mammals. Angrilla aurora, if I am getting your name right, the monkeys come under the mammalian group, not the aves group, right? So these are some of the mammals. The examples, again, as I told, always make a chart of the example, make a chart something like this, look at it every single day, and that's the only way you can recall and revise. Always after completing one phylum, recall the characteristics of the previous phylum on the same lines. Say for example, you learn about the excretory system. You can see the evolution. Protonephridia, flame cells are formed first in the platyhelminthes. Then you find metanephridia in annelids. Then you will find Malpighian tubules when it comes to the arthropods. You can find a primitive kind, organs of Bohannes or kidney when it comes to mollusca. So learn about that evolution of that particular system also continually. And exception, although closed came first in Annelida, you will find open again when it comes to the arthropoda. In mollusks again, there is both closed and open based on the group, right? Echino again is an open. So this continuous evolution, unique characteristics, say for example radula, parapodia, flame cells, these are important, and scientific names. So if you can ace these little points, tips and tricks, you can definitely ace the animal kingdom. It will not be like a horror movie like one of you mentioned. It's definitely going to be a chapter which you can thoroughly enjoy. You can answer a particular MCQ and you can think, okay, I get animal kingdom, right? So that is something you can understand, right? So as I told, bisexual and unisexual both exist, dear Aurora, when it comes to the annelids, right? So this is our schedule for the Jan. You can find other amazing lectures delivered by our beautiful faculty there, whether it's physics, chemistry and all. Stay tuned for 25th Jan. Again, we are going to touch digestion and absorption in one short Chak Day series within 2 hours, right? So do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, share. In case you have any questions also, we'd like to be more than happy to clear them in the next session. And log on to our website infinitylearn.com, where you can register yourselves for the test series. You can register yourselves for the courses. You also get a discount with the coupon code Mythili40, MYTHILI40. Stay tuned for another Tuesday, 12 o'clock, another beautiful lecture, digestion chapter. Till then, happy learning to you all. Thanks for a very patient listening, whether it is Aurora, Subiksha and you know, Ankita has always been there, Sukumar, right? All of you were great listeners. Definitely stay tuned for another beautiful lecture. Till then, happy learning. Love you all.